Alright then. So our first pick looks like it's going to be a Chinese restaurant, Macquarie map. And spicy difficulty. I do know this one. It's quite a technical one of the more technical picks of the pool. Characterised by a lot of really short, fast sliders, lots of buzz sliders here and there in the middle of streams as well.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be the first time we actually see Chinese Restaurant as a song being played in a World Cup. I do believe we saw it in the Mania World Cup as well.
I think this map has quite a few sets in different modes, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a very popular song, quite fun too. And as I'm looking here, the patterns in this seem to be very stylized. There's lots of them difficult one-half jump sections that might see breaks due to score v2, but you know, only time will tell to see how well these people play and how well they're able to handle these patterns going further into the stages.
As you were saying about score v2, that's a big thing with this one. Because there's a lot of patterns with short sliders within standard hit circle streams, you have to be super accurate with switching from tapping those sliders to doing the streams, and that is one of the big things about this one. Super technical. See that just before then you've seen a short slider stream, which is incredibly nasty if you aim in the wrong end. It's very easy to just aim the end instead of the start because they're overlapping in such a strange way. It is quite a short one though. It's a wild card pick. I can't see it being banned too much, but I can't see it being picked too much either. But because it's so short, it's one you can pull out when your back's against the wall. All in all, a pretty tricky one. Next one is Boot Paraoka map by Ricky Boy. A few years old, this one. This is a high-speed, single tap oriented map with some burst streams here and there. All in all, it is fairly high BPM at approach rate 9. That's a particular skill that some of the higher players may lose because they focus on playing higher approach rates when it comes to this kind of speed. It is the faster map of the no mod pool. Clocks in at about 236 BPM this one. Yeah, as I said, it's mostly single tapping, but some burst streams here and there.
It is a lot of single tapping. I actually watched Tasha play this map like 1,000 times trying to full combo it. Definitely had some problems with it. It is around 200 BPM if I do recall correctly. And that being said, it is pretty straightforward. It does have some crazy jumps here and there, but I mean, for our players going into this stage, this is kind of something that's a little bit more relaxing for them, I would imagine, as it's kind of easier to read with it being AR9. And even though it has a lot of fast areas, there's not too much jerking motions, as you can see it play out now. It's kind of it actually has a lot of decent flow to it. I think the only thing I'd really worry about is some of the angles on the sliders and seeing potential breaks from that.
That's true. The tick rate on this is quite high as well, so with some of the other maps with really fast sliders, they tend to have low tick rates, which is the little notches you see. And if you miss those, of course, you break your combo. On this one, on those longer, faster sliders, you have to follow them. So if you don't do that, if you're lazy with them, you can definitely get some cheap breaks here and there. I can see this one being picked quite a bit though, even though it is of the older style. I mean, one of the running themes of these pools so far seem to be they've got a couple of old maps in there. This one is, I wouldn't say this one feels old, and I think this one will be picked quite a bit in the next round.
Oh man, I mean, I know this is kind of meme cringe-worthy, but like seeing these older maps just makes me go, oh, you remember? I remember.
I'm trying not to wax lyrical about old maps. Back in my day, we always used distance snap and it was good.
Get your canes out, boys. It's happening. But yeah, as you can see, though, this is one of the main things, like, for the longest time, why Score V2 never even, like, possibly came into mind, is this was something that a lot of people worried about. Now, we didn't realize that players were going to be this darn OP that it wouldn't affect them that much, but as a mapper, and I put myself as a mapper before a player any day, my biggest concern was with the slider. Like, a lot of mappers use slider leniency as a mapping gimmick and tool. They use it because they know they can get away with patterns that normally wouldn't play right at all if you put into the if you make it as strict as it is with Score V2. But with slider leniency with Score V1, it's okay. You can pull those crazy combos off, and the pattern will actually be really fun. And luckily, it's just a tournament mechanic, but it is very impressive to see how well players can use Score V2 and still manage to pull off just the same amount of accuracy. Amazing plays, and it makes you feel that much more like taken away because the slider leniency is so rough.
All right, then. Next map is going to be Illumiscape by Zelia. It's a cannon map. Circle size 5. AR 9, I believe. Approach rate 9. Pretty short map, but this one is characterized by lots of very static patterns. Lots of squares, lots of triangles, geometric shapes everywhere.
Squares to this day are still the bane of my existence. Diamonds, hearts, any other pattern, stars, go ahead, throw them all at me. Triangles, I love them. But squares, I mean, I don't know if that's just a mouse thing. Dooms, what would you feel is your hardest pattern that, like, you have to deal with?
Probably squares, yeah. I have trouble with really wide square jumps. Small ones, not so much, but wide jumps are a problem. And back and forths as well. I go across the screen. Going back and forth with the mouse is a bit tricky.
You can see that there is quite a lot of geometric patterns, as you pointed out with this one. This one, I feel, will see quite a few picks, though. It does seem to be a little bit on the fun side. There's not too much that you have to worry about it with it. It's a no mod pick, so what you see is what you get. You don't have to worry about anything being added to it or getting crazy. So as long as you just, practice the map, get a good feel for it, you should do fine.
That's true. I think the major difficulty in this map lies in that first half where you have those expanding triangle and square jumps. Those sections are really nasty. The second half is more down to dealing with burst streams and whatnot. I feel like most players at this point will be okay with those, but that first half is pretty brutal, and I can see that being where teams are split on this map.
Yeah, Twitch chat. If you want to destroy any old player or mouse player in general, just spam square. You've got the right idea.
It's all over. I know I've had a run in with a few triangles here and there. I'll say that much. The squares are always worse.
Very much. I feel like with triangles you can almost draw a circle. We'll be moving on to our next map though, and this one this one's gonna be fun. This is Scarlet Rose, and this is a Val 0108 map. And this one I do know about. I also know, the reason why I know this map so well is back when I tried to play it, I think I failed it like 115 times maybe before I finally got it. Oh, this thing is just pure evil. You have to constantly, movement is a necessity here. There's no snapping. Constant movement is like, you move or you die. It's that basic. At least that's the way I see it. Dooms, you could probably give a more in-depth on this one. This one just spells rage for me.
Yeah, this one is super infamous. Of course, it is the hardest map in the game, of course. But yeah, this one's super infamous. A Val map, mostly alternating style. Same kind of thing we had in the Kami-sama Nijimaki map in the last pool. But this one has much. Well, the patterns in this are less about flow, because in the last one, they're in patterns where, aiming them you can do very casually, I'd say. This one, you've got to snap to every note. The directions all of these notes go in are fairly erratic, and you really have to be more careful with this one. Of course, lots of overlapping sliders and whatnot. And as the song goes on, it constantly speeds up. The slider velocity near the end gets really brutal. It's a really nasty map, this one.
Yeah, and even if, like Doomsday said, you do kind of have to snap to these notes, but like, I can't imagine this playing well in Score V2 at all. I don't see it. Like, I hope to be proved wrong, but this one is gonna be brutal. This is gonna be rough.
Yeah, this is a brutal map to put in this stage of the pool. This is the go home map. Because I imagine all the teams will be looking at this one, and you know, they'll be sweating a bit, I imagine.
Yeah, being like, man, I hope everybody else is thinking what I'm thinking, and we're gonna not see this map too many times. But at the same time, if a player has mastered this map, I've never really heard too many things about it being like a map that, oh, I just barely full comboed it and I probably never going to go back to it again. If you play this and you get a full combo, you pretty much learned how to full combo this, and the most you have to worry about at that point is fluke misses or just misreading something, which, it being a no-mod pick, shouldn't be too much of an issue.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the players in each team that can deal with this map will be able to do just fine on it. The ones that aren't used to playing this are going to have trouble. But I'm sure each team have players that can deal with this just fine. I mean, at the end here now, we're seeing the speed up section where the slider velocity gets really high. Big deal with this one as well, actually, is the fact that it's approach rate 9 at a fairly high speed. I believe 280 BPM, I think. No, 320 BPM in terms of the taps. So high BPM, but as Zetrot said, if you have players that are comfortable on this, they'll be just fine on it. So as a specialist, pick this one.
Yeah, and I'm going to call it now. Any players that do play this, I feel like they have to at least have 200 plays into it without, like, I know there's probably people that can combo it easily, but I don't buy it. Anyways, we'll be moving on to the next one here in just a moment, if not already.
Yeah,
it looks like my first story alone is going to be the next one. I actually have not seen this. The only thing I know is that the background is from Tokyo Ghoul, and that's it. So Doomsday, take it away.
Yep, that's a thing with a lot of Sout maps. This is a map by Sout. He likes to use Tokyo Ghoul backgrounds for his maps. This one is just under 3 minutes. It's fairly decently length. This is the mechanical test of the pool. The patterns are fairly simple to read, but it's characterized by wide jumps, some spaced streams here and there. This map is very, very highly rated in terms of star rating. It's 6.5 stars, but the patterns themselves fairly simple to read. It's the kind of thing that your mechanical masters of your team will be strong on, and one I imagine we'll see quite a lot next week. The approach rate's just over 9, it's about 9.2, 9.3 I believe, this one, which is fairly standard for extra difficulties in 2016. Very comfortable for many players, hence why I think we'll see this a lot. See some of those back and forth jumps, some really intense back and forth patterns in this. That's the difficulty spike in this. Near the end as well, there's a really nasty section like that, which you'll see in just a moment. I think the overall difficulty on this is quite high as well. Yes, overall difficulty 9. And all those streams as well, that's going to be taking a hit for some people's accuracy as well. It's the all-round pick. I think we will see this a lot next week. The more I watch the style of this, the more I think people will be looking at this as their safe pick. Even if it's such a high rating, I just see many players are used to playing this kind of thing and will be happy to pick it. But nevertheless, this is the thing that those top teams with the top 50 players will be very good on. Yeah, those back and forths at the end are mean. I could see people maybe even dropping a fail there because the HP drain's harsh. Anyway, next one, the final no mod map of this pool is going to be Go Away, a Pishy Fat map. Good old Pishy Fat, very popular mapper in the community. I'm sure many people here who have played quite a bit of OS have played a Pishy Fat map at some point. really well is he deals with flow extremely well. So even though he has all those slider velocity changes and constant spacing changes, the flow is generally something many players will find comfortable, but it's dealing with those changes on the fly, which is what's going to split teams apart. That said though, I imagine a lot of teams will be okay on this. Not nearly as much as on Alone, but this is one I imagine we'll see quite a bit. But the technical elements of this will bring out those more technical-minded players, the more really throw a lot of people off. BPMs below 170 is tricky for some people to hold accuracy on because of the constant urge to go faster. It is a real problem when you're used to playing at high level, that slow BPM streaming becomes increasingly difficult. It's just something not everyone practices on a regular basis, and it's the kind of thing this map catches out.
All right.
Hey, welcome back,
And
dude.
thank you. And without getting into too much of a delay, we're going to move right into our hidden pick, which is from Sound Horizon. It's Raijin no Harude, Haidurudi, I don't know. I got the Raijin part.
Yep.
But this is the first hidden pick here we're seeing. As you can see, the circle size is quite on the large side here. Not exactly sure what the approach rate is. I feel like I've seen this map before though. If I'm not mistaken, like the circle size and the way it's created. Oh yeah, it's an angel hunting map. Now that I'm actually looking on the side of the screen like I should have been. It is an angel hunting map. And yeah, I think I might have actually played this at one point, but I do not know too much.
It is quite old, this one. It's about 2011, 2012. This is actually very popular because of some scores that people in the community have done. There's been some incredible double time scores that I'm sure a lot of people who frequent the OC community have seen at some point. This one, of course, is a hidden pick though, at approach rate 8. Circle size 3. An interesting combination. I've talked about some of the other maps in the earlier pools that have had large CS, and I've talked about how that larger circle size can actually be detrimental to your reading because, you know, large circles can be tricky to focus like singularly on. This is that large CS with a low approach rate. Of course, the higher CS helps you aim it, but that actually adds to the difficulty in terms of reading for many players. I'm interested to see how the picks at this end up being. Lots of tricky patterns here and there, squares, lots of symmetry.
Yeah, lots of crazy jumps on this one. Like you said, readability on this one due to the high circle size should be pretty simplistic. I don't see too many drops on this. There are some tricky square sections, as you can see near the end, that might be. Oh, you've got to be kidding me!
It's all good. It's a special guest. But yeah, as Z-Trot was saying, a lot of it is fairly standard, but you have those difficulty spike sections. Anyway, the second hidden pick, and I'm going to give this a go, bear with me. This is an Undead Corporation tune, Yorunaku Usaji wa Yume wo Miru. I think I almost had it there. It's a strawberry map on Lunatic, which I don't think is the hardest difficulty for this. I'm not sure, unless I'm thinking of a different map. Oh, not quite. This is the Lunatic. So it's not quite a 2013 map, I believe this is. That's approach rate 9. It's a fairly standard beats per minute on this. I believe it's about 190, 200. Lots of patterned Symmetry jumps, once again, at a more standard approach rate this time. But there are lots of overlapping stacks, lots of stack patterns. I believe there's a few stacks in this that actually change rhythm within the stack, if I recall correctly, which is nasty on hidden. It requires practice. On top of that as well, this is also a very long map. It's almost 4.5 minutes. 4 minutes 19, or 4 minutes 6 seconds ring time, which is a very long pick for the group stage in terms of maps that aren't the tiebreaker. So a massive consistency test as well. I can see most of these patterns being okay in terms of like not being massively nasty, but there are some sections like the aforementioned stack sections that need a few plays before you need to play your match, because they can catch you out if you're not prepared. And the massive length of this map really tests your hidden consistency. No lyrics, that's the different version of the map you're thinking of. Actually 2 ranked maps for this. One is by Smoothie, I think. Difficulty stays pretty consistent through this. After that really slow intro, it pretty much doesn't let up outside of your break here for the 4-minute duration. So a very strong hidden consistency test. Probably one of the first long hidden maps we've had. The ones up to this point have been no longer than 3 minutes, if that. So this is a new style for this round. First time we've seen it in this tournament so far.
Definitely loving throwback love we're starting to see with some of these older maps. Feels like everyone might have a case of remembering the old school, which I love.
Yeah, I mean, I can't complain with some love for old maps. Can't complain with that. A massive combo score on this. Lots of notes. Very long map. There we go. That is the second and final hidden of that pool. Now we're getting on to the hard rock picks. Starting off with the Deus Ex Machina and Okaratu map. Great Equalizer is the death is the diff name. That's a long diff name. About 3 minutes long. Mostly jumpy. With some streams here and there. A fairly balanced map for the hard rock pool. I believe the circle size on this is standard fare, circle size 5.2, which is circle size 4 with hard rock, with the overall difficulty of 10. This one is mostly standard until you hit the choruses. Just before the choruses, there are some pretty major jump sections. Each time that occurs through the song, the jumps get even wider, and they get pretty ridiculous near the end. More of a consistency test than anything, this one. Of course, the last consistency test, the Supercell map, didn't get played, but hopefully we see a bit more of this one. I do like the song myself. But for the most part, this is a fairly standard, average length hard rock pick. We'll see the hard rock focused of the teams picking next time. Or maybe you won't see it, or we'll see. Seeing lots of burst streams in the verse sections with the jumps coming up more in the choruses. But it is fairly consistent in terms of that throughout. Not much of a slow part. I think there might be a little bit just before the final chorus, which you'll see in just a moment. But for the most part, pretty standard the whole way through this one. Actually, no, I've been corrected. It's circle size 4.4, actually, my mistake. So that means it's circle size 5.5 or 5.6, which is actually smaller than the average. That's fairly tricky for some people, even though many extra difficulties around this the modern mapping era tend to use that. So I can't see that being too much of a weird thing, but it is actually smaller than the average. My mistake.
Yeah, it does look like it's going to be pretty... I feel like this one will be a majorly picked hard rock map. That being said, we really won't know till we see like the players playing on the map pool and what they're gonna like. That's something I feel like we should probably do more, is like ask what the players really practice for the most. Ooh, excuse me, the most. Like, Dooms, as you're seeing this map, you know, you play for the United Kingdom. Would you feel like, what are the main ones you want to practice on so far, just out the gate?
Right out the gate?
Yeah, like what we've covered so far to this point.
I think out of the the ones we've seen, the hidden and the nomad. For one, Scarlet Rose, definitely, because I imagine that one, even though it's so wacky, we'll see it a lot because it's such a popular map. I think that one's one we have to practice. Raijin, obviously, Approach Rate 8 needs practice or you're going to get messed up. And the Undead Corporation hidden as well, because it's so long it needs practice.
Well, our next one is Yurgri Simi Nikki, and that is going to be our next hard rock pick here. And this one definitely looks a little bit harder out of the gate here. I'm not exactly sure on the circle size. I don't have the information next to me, but just going off it, I'd want to say roughly, would it be like 5 maybe? Maybe, might be harder than 5. These look about the same size as previously though.
It's circle size 5.2, this is.
5.2, all right. Well, with it being circle size 5.2, it does look like the drain is very taxing on this one. As we're seeing the playthrough here, you can kind of see that even with just a few mistakes, the HP bar drops dramatically. So keeping your combo on some of these sections might be like, as you can see, there's a couple drain sections like in between combos, and the life bar just goes down.
Yep, that's hard work for you. This one has a lot of burst streams and repeat sliders, so as long as you combo your health, it's going to be okay. But of course, as is with any hard rock map really, you can easily fail if you miss like 3 or 4 notes. At the very least, you can fail from that. This one, all in all, is a fairly standard hard rock pick once again, actually. But this one's more down to dealing with a lot of overlapping sliders, lots of burst sliders here and there, which are going to tax you on score V2. Some burst streams here and there that are quite spaced, but for the most part, it's down to more tricky slider sections in this one, more than anything. That's the gimmick for this one, with decent length too. It's about 3 minutes or so. I can see some of those sliders. One slider comes down, but then the next one that's only 1/4 away, like jolts in the opposite direction. I can see that kind of thing messing up some people in the actual tournament. There's quite a few of those I've noticed in this latter half. Some spaced triples as well. Just a couple here and there. Can always be nasty, especially if you're not quite set mentally and you're shaking. Those kind of map patterns are nasty if you're not prepared. A slide of velocity change at the end. A nasty way to cap off that one. But for the most part, that one, I think, will be picked quite a bit, actually. I think that one might actually see more play than Deus Ex, but we'll see.
Well, as we move on to our double time, as you can see it playing already, it's Sense. And this one is quite on the old side as well, I want to say. At least with the way it's created here. I really wish we had vlogs to this, and I do apologize for not having all the information on hand, but hopefully our lovely Encyclopedia Doomsday will be able to shed some light on it.
Sure, I'll give it a go. I've actually not played this map, but I can tell you this map was submitted in 2015, ranked this year, but it's a La Catalina map, which is old style. But it is a modern map, this one. Of course, seeing a La Catalina in DT is no surprise. She always maps nice maps that work out well in DT. This one is no exception. Pretty high BPM, this one though. It's base BPM 168, which is about 250-ish BPM with DT, which is the kind of BPM I would call double time. Now we're getting into some proper fast double time maps. The ones before this were fairly low in terms of high-end DT, but now we're getting into something proper in my opinion. But of course, this one characterized by lots of small squares and triangles, lots of geometric shapes, not necessarily spaced out too much, but there's plenty of stacks and short burst streams, testing speed on this one. Not necessarily stamina, but dealing with burst speed. There's a lot of squares in this one, actually. Oh dear. Does look really cool though. I do like a good DT map. It's a good modern DT map that isn't approach rate 9 DT, because you know there's not that many high-end double time maps in terms of the high-end player community that are approach rate 8, because approach rate 8 DT is my personal favourite thing to play, and a lot of the high-end DT now is usually approach rate 9 and above. This one's approach rate 8. So it's approach rate 9.6 when played with double time.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. But it being a La Catalan map, that's definitely why I confused it for being older. As they held their original style pretty well to this. All right, and we'll be moving on to Connect. That is our next double time. That's a Claris S song. I'm almost positive everyone here who's been in OS for at least a year will know of Claris S. And, oh, well. Okay, never mind.
Nah, it's alright, it's alright.
As you can see, we're getting right into this one. And this one is, if I'm not mistaken, Holaza? Map? Yeah, this is the one with the storyboard. Okay.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah. I know this one now, yeah. This one actually has a higher BPM than the last map. This one is BPM 175 base, which is 263 with double time, which is mighty fast. This one has less burst streams in it, less 1/4 notes. The last one had lots of stacks and little streams. We had to alternate them. This one's more or less down to single tapping with the odd burst here and there. You can kind of think about this as being similar to Remember History of the last pool. Lots of low spacing, where it jolts to high spacing pretty quickly. No warning there. But less about the speed and more about just dealing with that high speed aim. Again, this is approach rate 8, same as the last one. Overall difficulty of 7, so it's about overall difficulty 9.6, I believe. No, overall difficulty of 9, I think. I think it's 9. It's around about then. Forgive me if my maths is off, but it's around about that. Circle size 4. Some of those jump patterns are kind of mean. There was one in particular that passed by a moment ago that was like a very narrow diamond. It started at the top of the screen, jumped to the bottom, then immediately did a 180 back in like a sort of diamond pattern with 4 notes, which is really nasty. In terms of modern flow, that is a harsh thing to play. It's really just characterized by those difficulty spikes, those major points of failure. So in between those, if you can nail those jumps, some more calm sections to gain some more score.
All right, and we'll be going into our first free mod pick, which is going to be, oh man, everyone knows this one. ROG Unlimitation. Now this thing is infamous. Everybody knows it. It's absolutely crazy. It's your 220 BPM Death Stream map. It's an approach rate of 10. The circle size is on, I want to say it's actually larger than 4.
Yeah, it is. It's circle size 3, this.
Yeah, the circle size 3 here, so... but don't let the large circle size fool you, as this map is literal hell. And it is the bane of my existence back in the day. And this thing gets absolutely ridiculous. One of the things to point out here is that these streams, these death streams, if you're not ready for them, they will take you out, and they will take you out very quickly. The circle size doesn't reflect the overall difficulty, as the drain is realistic. Even with Hard Rock being on there, it's not going to change too much. As you see, these circles are still huge. This is a free mod pick though, so that means Hard Rock Hidden can be used on this, and if you can hold the combo and get through that death stream, you can cash out on maximum points.
Yeah, as Zichot was saying, yeah, if you can manage that speed, if you can keep up with the stamina on this is going to be such a good pick for you. I can see teams winning on this with the low accuracy FCs, like AFCs carrying the day. But yeah, a very specialized pick for these stamina-based streamers in the team. Some of these streams are pretty darn long at 220 BPM, which is a fairly significant speed. Of course, this kind of thing actually is well suited to whether you want to go hidden or hard rock, because there are some tricky aim sections in terms of the first half before you hit the major stream sections. But for the most part, those are quite comfortable in comparison with, you know, some of the other maps we've had before with hard rock. But it comes down to if you can deal with the higher overall difficulty of hard rock, if you're hitting those streams, or with hidden, whether you can follow those streams with hidden. It just comes down to how you deal with the streams at the end of the day.
All right. That being said, we should be moving on to our next one, which is going to be Sakete Rhythm. Now, this next one is pretty famous, and it gets pretty confusing, either if you take hidden or hard rock into the mix. The difficulty that's going to be put through is the Sky Star difficulty, which is centered around reading heavy patterns. And like, if you're going to be able to read heavy patterns, maybe taking hidden isn't a good idea, but of course, the mod we're seeing played right now is hidden, in fact, so you'll be able to see what we're talking about with some of these crazy patterns, as this one is absolutely rough.
It is Sky Star mapping, so it's characterized by lots of intricate slider patterns, really complex rhythms being mapped, which you got to hit, you know, the slider starts and ends due to the accuracy weighting. It's incredibly important. There's lots of overlapping patterns here and there, making hidden more tricky. Some tricky slider like bits that are meant to throw you off. Like just earlier then, you might have noticed there was a bit where they had 1/2 sliders going back and forth on each other, but then all of a sudden one of those sliders was actually jolted into a really short one, and that kind of thing is designed to throw off the player that hasn't practiced this or just cannot read it on hidden. It's the kind of thing that you know it's better off to play on hard rock. One of the themes you've seen in some of the earlier free mods is that we've had a pick that's more suited to hard rock, one that's been more suited to hidden, and one that's just all around. You know, it's more difficult with both. This one is the kind of thing that's more difficult with hidden. See, rock limitation is more tricky with hard rock because of that accuracy deficit.
Oh boy, I can't wait for what we're going to be reviewing here in just a moment as we watch the rest of this song play through. And my cat tear up my boxes. Go away!
Oh dear. Z-Trot's pets. Here, bring these things to test us, man. It's here to test us. Multitasking. Nasty short slider burst right there, just before that slow bit. Anyone here who has played a few of Skystar's maps, popular mapper around here, will know generally what to expect. His style's very iconic. A lot of his maps have a similar style. Always tricky on the rhythms, and this one is no exception. But someone's going to have to play this thing with hidden, and that's not going to be fun. Alright then, getting into our final one.
Oh, can I have fun with this one, Dooms?
I'll go for it.
I know this one. Okay, so we're going to be looking at Night of Nights, guys. Now, you might know this one, but we heard you like old maps, so we put some more old maps in with your old maps. And what's better than an old map? A DJ Pop old map from 2009, nonetheless. Night of Nights is a crazy map that composed mostly of circles. There are very punishing doubles and quads that players might struggle on. It's also good to note that the default AR is 8. So if you do use Hard Rock, it's going to punish you for losing control. Hidden is punishing because reading at its stack latency, mind you guys, 2009, let me remind you that. There is literally a stack leniency of 0 on this. That was rankable back in the day. No longer is that available, but it is definitely going to be rough, as 1/4 notes and 1/2 notes are going to stack perfectly. You'll have no idea unless you've played this song. I do not see this one seeing too many plays from any of our newer players. If an older player gets a hold of it, they might be able to do something. But like, it does it in the second half of the song, and that is where crap just gets crazy.
My god, what year is this? There's so many old maps in this pool, man. Wow. I didn't even notice, man. What this is, yeah, like I said, this is a very old style map. Lots of right angle notes here, and so many single taps and really tricky stacks as Z-Trot stuff.
Yeah, and if you don't like what you see here with the low approach rate, you can always try to put on Hard Rock and deal with them super tiny circles. But you know, it's your own funeral either which way. But oh man, this definitely makes me remember. I remember so much about this. Do you remember Doomsday? I bet you remember.
I remember.
Yes.
I'll just go over a few of the just the numbers for you on this one. It's beats per minute is 153, which is pretty down slow. Lots of doubles in that as well, which is very tricky on that BPM. Approach rate 8. Overall difficulty of 8, circle size 5, with a HP drain of 3, so pretty low HP drain on this one. But the low spacing means, unless people really bomb it on hidden, I can't see people failing out on this one. But yeah, we won't see much play on this. I can pretty much guarantee it. But when it does appear, it's going to be something special.
I totally thought about that. Like, dude, Lou is gonna destroy this map.
Oh god, yeah, this is Lua's bread and butter map. Oh yeah.
All right, and so we should be getting on to our final map of the map pool, the tiebreaker, and it's Dragon Force Symphony of the Night. We heard you liked AR8, guys, so we got you plenty of AR8. Don't worry, we got you. You're covered. I just feel all new players right now are just ripping their hair out. Like, no! We've done so good to avoid AR8 throughout the entire map pool, banning it out, and boom! AR8 in your face.
Like, wow. This is actually a massive deal. I mean, very rarely do we ever see a tiebreaker at such a low approach rate. But yes, the tiebreaker for the quarterfinals is an AR8 Dragon Force map. Now that's going to be something a lot of people are not going to be too fond of, but hey, you can't avoid it now. This one is a BPM of, let me look. Can I find that post? Yeah, a BPM of 177, approach rate 8, overall difficulty of 8, circle size 5. This one is characterized by lots of streams, lots of tricky slider patterns during the solo. But for the most part, you can think of this as similar to some of Leisja's Dragon Force maps. Not necessarily intense on the aim.
It was inspired by Leisja's mapping. So you kind of know what to expect if you've played a lot of Leisja maps, like you said, Dooms. And if people don't like the AR8, you know, you can always just turn on Hard Rock and play with the 6.5 circle size. You know, whatever, floats your boat. Either which way, you're going to have a hard time with this one. This tickles me. I hope we see a tiebreaker, because I feel like if we get a team that's more oriented towards newer style maps, we might see like a flop. And you don't see flops very often, especially not in like the quarterfinals, you know? Like, flops are not something you're expecting to see, but this could be flop material. A lot of people have kind of paid to the wayside of AR8, and they don't pay too much attention to it anymore. And I love that the map pool selectors are finally putting in more aspects to this game. It's only a matter of time, boys, before there's an easy pool. I'm calling it now. OWC 2021 easy pool. We got this.
I'd vouch for that, man. Easy pool for 2017. Let's go.
Oh, you're trying to cause anarchy and destruction instantly.
Oh yeah. That's what I do. I don't know. I'm just biased, but yeah. Now, I just want to mention about this. Yes, this is approach rate 8. We are kind of fixating on that a lot, even though there is a lot more to this map, which we'll touch on in a moment. But even though this is approach rate 8, because of the fact that this isn't really an aim-focused map, at least in terms of jumps, that approach rate 8 isn't a massive deal, I imagine, in terms of like just straight up reading, because it's fairly simple in its layout. It's just coming down to dealing with those space streams and the slider patterns in the solo, which you'll see in a moment.
Yeah, and not letting yourself get overworked by the fact that there's a ton of notes on screen. As long as you stay calm with AR8, you're fine. I know a lot of people have gotten muscle reflex and eye reflexes to not having too many objects on screen anymore, but like, in all honesty, like, you shouldn't, like, you started with AR8. When you started playing the game, you were playing, like, you know, hards, normals, easies, insanes, and you got a good reading ability for that, and you really excelled at it. And then you started using Hard Rock and made it easier to play AR9. You get easier with that, but you can't neglect the skills that it took you to get to that point. And I feel like that's what the map selectors are trying to do here. They're trying to make sure that you're not just sharp in one skill set of OS, you're sharp in all of them. And low approach rate is a skill. Being able to read that many notes and not get confused is definitely a skill in its own right. And I feel that players should be awarded if they can pull that off.
Getting into that solo now, as you can see. And yeah, I've got to echo what D-Trot's saying. That's one thing I really like about the map pool so far, is that they have so much variety in them in terms of the elements that they're testing at the players, all sorts of speeds, approach rates, you know, styles of map. It's nice. Every single map has a special thing that a team can use to leverage some advantage they have, which is nice to have and to watch too.
Very much so, and it looks like this play from Ultraman is very impressive. So as you can see, it's not impossible. It might be a little bit of a, ooh man, AR8 though on a tiebreaker situation, the nerves. Oh, I could just imagine this is going to be everyone's worst nightmare.
Now the question here is, and I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking this, if this appears, will we see people play Hard Rock on this, even though it's circle size 5, because it'll be easier than the approach rate 8? I can see some players doing that, which would be really interesting.
I too have come victim to playing a map with ridiculously small circles just for a faster approach rate, but it's never been on the crazy amount of like AR8 I can play all day, but like if it was AR6 or 7, I might do something else. But that being said, guys, that is going to be our entire Mappools showcase. We hope you enjoyed looking at it. The next week, we will be going into the quarterfinals. And I really hope to hear from you guys. Definitely tell us what you think of the map pool and who you're excited to see win. And don't forget, guys, you can pick up banners to support your favorite team. And remember, that banner will stay if your team manages to stop attacking my feet. I'm sorry, but anyways, your team will be able to brain fart. Anyways, Doomsday, wrap it up for us. I apologize.
It's all right. It's all right. But yeah, that is the round of 16 all wrapped up, and we will be back next weekend for the winners and losers bracket to continue the tournament and play the map pool we just watched. It promises to be super interesting. Hopefully we see you guys then. And don't forget, rhythm is only a click away. We will see you next week. Goodbye.